Well, I told y'all I was going to do a deep dive on Jamal Bryant. I did one on him a few years ago, but it's time for an update. And I absolutely do understand that a lot of his adoring fans are going to be in the comment section. Honey, save the drama for your mama because we are definitely going to get into this mess. And for all the people that are going to come in here saying there are many other people that you should be doing a deep dive on, why do the pastor? I say why not, because so many people are asleep and don't even realize what's going on. So many of you probably view him as the good pastor doing the right thing, preaching the word of God. And I could not disagree more, which is why Mr. Bryant made it to my Sleeper Cells series again. Let's get into it. Let me introduce you new people to the concept. A sleeper cell can be a person, a concept, or an organization. They infiltrate quietly, blending in as saviors, innovators, or trusted allies. Beneath the surface lies a sinister purpose, hidden, calculated, and waiting. Sometimes even the sleeper cell is oblivious to its own role in a far greater agenda. By the time the truth reveals itself, the damage is done and the ripple effects are unstoppable. Tonight we're peeling back the layers, exposing the unseen and shining a light on the forces that manipulate from the shadows. Because the most dangerous threat isn't the one you fear. It's actually the one you never see coming. And now that you got the concept, let's get into this business about Jamal Bryant. Now listen, I'm not saying Pastor Jamal Bryant is a villain of this story, and I for damn sure ain't saying he's not. Today, we're unpacking the man, the myth, of course, the mess. A charismatic preacher with the knack for stirring souls and scandals. Oh honey, buckle up, because we're diving into the tea they don't spill at Sunday service. So here's the thing, Jamal Bryant didn't just walk into New Birth Missionary Baptist Church, sauntered in like the prodigal son, fresh off his own headlines, but was he invited? Did someone just hand him the keys to the kingdom? Yes, let's get into this bullshit. Say that the church is a hospital for sinners. But baby, how many ICU visits can one man make and still be the doctor on call? Whether you grew up in church like I did, or you're just here for the tea, this story makes you wonder, are some people really chosen by God? Are they just chosen by the right connection? Let's start at the beginning. Jamal Harris Bryant, born to a family of religious royalty. His father, Bishop John Richard Bryant, and his mother, Reverend Cecilia Williams Bryant, are icons in the AME church. So you could say that ministry was in his DNA, but so was ambition. After earning a Master of Divinity degree from Duke University and a stint as youth pastor at Bethel AME Church in Baltimore, Jamal took a bold step. In 2000, he founded Empowerment Temple AME Church. Now listen, this church started with only 43 members. Say it grew fast is a gross understatement. Within 1 year, he had amassed 5,000 members, positioning him as a rising star in the Black church community. But of course, and as always, with fame came whispers, and whispers that would eventually become headlines. Now, let's talk about the mess. Jamal Bryant's personal life has been a tabloid buffet. Married to Gizelle Bryant, a stunning and sharp first lady, their union seemed to be picture perfect. Until it wasn't. In 2009, Gizelle filed for divorce after Jamal's infidelity came to light. Not that she didn't know that he was cheating all the time, because she did. But once it became public, she just could not stand the scrutiny. And she wasn't the only one holding receipts. Baby, Gizelle Bryant was a picture-perfect first lady. Poised, glamorous, and unbothered. Well, mostly. Turns out while she was hosting church galas, Jamal was out here hosting private fellowship meetings, and by private, I do mean very intimate, if you catch my drift. Rumor has it that the good pastor had been cheating on her well before they even got married, and some say that stuff happened literally 2 days before the wedding night. So let's just pause here for a second. This is a pastor, right? This is a guy who is decorated. He has all these degrees. He's got his master's in divinity. He's gone to the most prestigious colleges, right? And universities. And all of a sudden he goes and he opens a church with only 40-something members. And then within a year, he has 5,000 members. You don't find that uncanny? Come on, let's do a little critical thinking. Someone's church grows that fast under a year and you think they have time for affairs? Think about all the work that it takes in order to serve a small church and a community and build a relationship. So again, let's think about it. Very young man, very young pastor. We already know that he's had all these egregious affairs and all of this kind of stuff. The only way that you can pull this stuff off is a miracle of God, or if there is a machine behind you fueling you because there is a greater purpose for you later on. They're building your influence while building your bag and building your credibility. And I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but when it comes to the church, you do not need a lot to build credibility. For the most part, all you have to do is know how to preach with a moving, riveting rhythm and be very, very charismatic. And that even if we don't like him or agree with his methods, is something that Jamal Bryant has mastered to the point where he does not have to walk the walk. All he has to do is talk the talk, and he literally can talk his parishioners and followers into doing and agreeing with the most unholy things. But we'll get into that later. So it was needless to say that Gizelle was not here for it. And baby, when she found out, she packed up her Chanel bags and said, "Not on my watch." And honestly, can you blame her? Because the embarrassment that she had to experience being the young pastor's wife was just absolutely unbearable. Don't get me wrong, Gizelle didn't leave because of the first affair. Not the second or the third either. Gizelle left when everybody else found out. Because if we're being honest, Gizelle absolutely liked the positioning that she had being the first lady. Gizelle understood the social politics of it all. Understood as an alumni of Jack and Jill and what being high yellow with green eyes from a prestigious family, being married to a charismatic preacher could do for your social hierarchy. Because we see these folks on social media, TV, and podcasts, we are under the illusion that we know all about them and understand their stories. But honey, we really don't. They not like us. They've just done a hell of a job with the help of a hell of a machine in convincing us that they are. Now, let's get one thing straight. Gizelle Bryant did not come from nothing. She was born into the upper echelon of Black excellence. Her father, Curtis Graves, he wasn't just a name on a roster. He actually worked alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., often behind the scenes of the civil rights movement. You see, Curtis Graves made history as the first Black American to serve in the Texas House of Representatives since Reconstruction. Oh, and did I mention he also worked for NASA? For those who think NASA is just a hangout for science geeks playing with rockets, think again. NASA is an executive branch of the U.S. government, and it's famously tough to get in. Yes, you have to have a high IQ. In fact, the average employee of NASA has an IQ of 132. Rumor has it that many NASA insiders were cherry-picked as children, hand-selected by the powers that be to keep close tabs on the real brainiacs. In other words, Curtis Graves was a made man with powerful connections. And in circles like these, a daughter doesn't just marry an old random. Honey, she's destined to pair up with someone equally, quote-unquote, made. And here's where Jamal Bryant enters the group chat. His father, Bishop John Richard Bryant, served as the 106th bishop of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And baby, he is said to be the founder of neopentecostalism. Fancy titles, honors galore, honorary degrees, he's got it. He even took a small congregation and turned it into a mega church in record time, much like his son did. Now listen, baby, there is all kinds of tea to be spilled about how the CIA allegedly keeps an eye on high-profile clergy and religious movements. Sleeper cell or not, you'd better believe somebody is always watching. Operation Mockingbird taught us that there are no major organizations without a government presence lurking behind the scenes. That's by design, if you ask certain insiders. So if you're itching to dive deeper into the CIA's role in the Black church movements, or you want to unpack the Mockingbird operation a little further, let me know in the comments, because once you start pulling at these threads, you'll find there's always more to uncover, sometimes too much. We all know he can't keep it in his pants. Now, the thing about old Molly Mall, that he is not selfish with his dingle. He's gonna sling it, and he's definitely gonna make some babies. Given the fact that the dick slinger in question is a pastor, you would think that there would be a morality clause. I mean, shouldn't there be one imposed upon him, since he's so blessed and anointed and appointed to shepherd the Lord's people? I would think that he would at least have to be an example of godliness. And though I know all the excuses of him still being a man in your favorite verse, touch not my anointed and cause my prophet no harm, is usually how the church hides the indiscretions of their unholy men. Which leads me to believe that these men are not anointed, but simply appointed to groom the public in the way that they should not go. But don't worry, Muffin, we're gonna break this mess down, and then I'll connect the dots and make it plain for you, allegedly. Now, many would agree that a good way to gauge the effectiveness and just how sincere a pastor is how he heads his family, and most importantly, how he leads his wife. And there is a verse in the Bible that speaks on how man is supposed to be head of his wife like Christ is head of the church, and then it lists a whole lot of attributes. Now let's use that as the gleaming example that this pastor of many, many people is either a heretic, a scammer, full of shit, purposely leading people astray, or perhaps all of the above. And some of you may be familiar with this part of the story, but just let me run it back and then put it all into perspective. When Jamal married Gizelle, he already had 2 other children out of wedlock. The scandals had already started throughout the church, and Jamal was always trying to intimidate and leverage his social status against anyone who dared to call him out. The fact that the church did so much covering and protecting for this man, knowing that he was out there getting everybody pregnant, preaching and teaching holiness and righteousness, while freaking and sneaking anyone who would allow him to get in. Being tall, dark, charismatic, having a way with words, the secret sauce to being able to be a pastor, a preacher, a leader, and get away with doing everything that you shouldn't be doing. Everybody speaking out was ostracized and even intimidated, to the point where there are multiple situations where parishioners had to actually file order of protections out on Jamal Bryant. The church buries all of that and will chronically over-compartmentalize just to save their leader. Listen, a lot of people view Gizelle as a victim. I'm not here to say that she's not. I absolutely do want to lend a little bit of credence to what a parishioner told me about the church and what was going on when Gizelle Bryant was the first lady. We're gonna call her Miss Church Member, and Miss Church Member is a trusted source of mine that I have been knowing since 2002. Here's exactly what she said to me about what was happening at that church and the details behind their marriage. She said Gizelle was hunting him down and chasing him down like a rabid dog. I'm not, nor did she say that behavior was not reciprocated, but Gizelle was definitely aggressively letting everybody know that was her man and they were doing it and doing it well. Baby, at the time, he was fresh off a scandal. He had 2 children out of wedlock, and the church was talking. I understand, even before he married and after he married Gizelle, she did not speak to and was not friendly with the women in the church. Partly because she was in competition with a lot of them. Other reason just may be because she had one thing on her mind and one thing only. And from what I understand, that was getting him in the bed. Apparently, the first time they were engaged, it did not last long. Congregants said that they made it obvious that they were in a sexual relationship, even though he was the pastor and preaching against it. Their relationship became so brazen and openly sinful that they just had to go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. Led to Jamal Bryant telling his congregation that it's okay to have sex before marriage as long as you intend on getting married. Apparently, the board didn't like her, and neither did any of the parishioners, because apparently she was super duper mean to him. Gizelle realized that she had to be a little bit friendlier if she was ever going to get this man to marry her. She actually did befriend a few ladies. One of them went to the elders and told that she was practicing witchcraft. She, being Gizelle, actually had to be spoken to by the elders about mixing things in his food and saying chants to control him. Jamal found out about the witchcraft, perhaps pondering over how she had such an insatiable sexual appetite. He got a little scared, so he decided to end the engagement. Fortunately, Jamal was telling his business to one of his armor bearers. The armor bearer basically said that Jamal was being told by Gizelle that she didn't need the marriage anymore, she didn't need the relationship, that she just needed and wanted to have him. And she meant sexually. Gizelle knew just what type of man she was dealing with. She knew that he was having sex with multiple women, so her strategy was to give him so much sex that he only needed one woman. Goal wasn't just to get the man. She wanted the marriage, and she wanted the status. You see, Gizelle actually had preaching and teaching aspirations of her own. Gizelle had hope through Jamal that she could establish her own ministry as a first lady and then secure her own bag.
If God be for me, if God be for me. I know this is a Baptist church. I know y'all know scripture. I would never insult y'all. I know the scripture is if God be for us. All right. My me is always my us. That's right. Because it's my kids, it's my friends, it's my girlfriends that I haven't seen in a while. It's my co-workers, it's my business partners. It's the lady that comes to help me clean my house, and the man that cuts my grass, and all my girlfriends, even the ones that I don't like. They're my me. They're my us. And if God be for us, because see, I don't know y'all's story, y'all don't know my story, but I know my story. So I know that I've been blessed, I am blessed, I'm going to be blessed.
It was a race to hurry up and get that engagement put back on so that they could go ahead and get married. Because the number of Jamal's illegitimate children kept growing and growing. It was growing just as fast as his church was, and Lord knows she couldn't afford any more competition walking through those church doors. So within 6 months of the breakup, the engagement was actually back on, and we all know how this story ended. She knew that she had married a man that was insatiable. She knew that he was for the streets. And because everybody knew, there was no shortage of women that were not willing to lay down with this man, and Gizelle knew it. People think that they broke up just because of the cheating, and that is the official story of Gizelle Bryant. You got to think about it. She got married to him while he was actively cheating. In fact, Muffin, rumor has it that she got with him while he was engaged to the woman that he was dating before he married her. It was really, really hard for her to stand because she knows that she had a bit of social status above the other women. Baby, the pressure was just too much for her. Gizelle absolutely ended up in a mental institution once before they were married and again after the divorce.
You want to talk about your fiery box that's on fire and that's why you can't keep a man? Do you want to do that? What's fiery box? You talking about her coochie on fire? Oh, yes, she has a hot box. Tell everybody what's going on between them legs of yours. And that's why you don't gynecologist? Can we stick to not the coochie? My hot box is called the WAP box, okay? And Karen, your box is all the way dry. I'd take a WAP box over a dry box any day of the week. Honey.
She's obsessed with my coochie because we all know the ding dong at our house is broken.
Giselle, what you will not do is disrespect my husband when your ding dong is in everybody else's. What you will not do, Giselle, you don't have a man. You're broken from Hampton University, and everybody knows it. And that's why we went to Sing Sing. What is Sing Sing? Is it a city?
Oh, so now you want to know what Sing Sing is. So Sing Sing is a mental institution or a loony bin for the elite. It's a little different than what you would think a traditional mental institution is. It literally is for a specific type of client. Bryant would not be able to marry just any woman. She would have to be made, as I spoke of in the beginning. Being made, per se, would involve a lot of social and mental and emotional programming that the average woman could not take. Gizelle needed to be at those facilities because Gizelle had to prepare to be the wife of a plant as well as the ex-wife of a plant. There's a certain protocol that she had to follow, and they had to make sure she was up for the job. Now, listen, I know some people need a blue pill explanation, you know, just a regular explanation for what was going on at Sing Sing and why she had to go. But Karen actually kind of knew a little bit about it because Gizelle absolutely had some sexual issues there. But the issues probably were a little mental because Gizelle could not understand why she was throwing at Jamal the way that she was and he was still sleeping with other women. Dark-skinned women. Got to understand that Gizelle could not believe that her green eyes and light skin was not bringing this man in. He kept cheating with a certain type of woman and it was driving her up the wall. Now, you got to remember that Jamal was having a whole bunch of scandals at this time. He could not take another hit. Even though the elders were against it, the powers that be, the establishment that he really reports to, that's exactly who they wanted for him because she literally fit the description and the bill for what they needed his wife to look like. So before he risked ruining his good name about this woman going to the crazy house every 5 minutes because he was fucking up and down the streets, he had to go ahead and marry her or Gizelle was going to be a problem. Meanwhile, Jamal just kept on fucking up and down the pews and business as usual. The thing about these sleeper cell videos is that they are not just all about the wine. Biggest thing about this is to connect the wine to the agenda. The gossip is good, the gossip is juicy, and we shall drink from this wine glass. However, understand that there's a more serious and sinister situation going on here, and baby, we gonna get into it. Now again, he's not losing any church members. His church is growing. His popularity is growing, even though he has all of these scandals. Maybe that was a bitter pill to swallow just for a little social status and a marriage. Gizelle had not had her special programming at the mental hospital, she would not have been able to do it. Because tell me, how many women you think would be friends with the husband that cheated on them and had children on them? How many? So I'm pretty sure that Gizelle just would not have been a fit for his next big project. His next big project was actually taking over as pastor of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church. Really odd because New Birth had a pastor that was full of scandals himself. I mean, I would think that the last thing that a church that was filled with as many rumors as New Birth, that the last pastor that they would need to take over is one that couldn't keep it in his pants. If you think about old Eddie Rome, he was just as charismatic and explosive, skilled at preaching as Jamal Bryant. Again, just like Jamal, he had tons of scandal, especially surrounding sexual sin. So it's really curious as to why Jamal was placed in that position. And the way that he got put in that position, Honey, is really, really strange. Really, really strange. Let's get into it. Look, everybody and their mama knows there's talk about celebrities being part of some secret cult called the Illuminati, right? But listen, don't get it twisted. That same hidden hand isn't just pulling strings in Hollywood. Nah, they're busy behind the scenes in every corner of influence you can think of. Entertainment, education, religion, health, tech, wherever folks can be swayed, somebody's creeping in the shadows and pushing an agenda 24/7. Now, plenty of people claim they're hip to this, but let's keep it real. Most of the folks running their mouths are either clueless or straight up lying, making sure the real truth stays buried. Take Jaguar Wright, for example. She's out here spitting wild stories that blow up online, but a lot of that noise is more about shock value than facts. This is exactly how real information gets drowned in a sea of confusion. And if you think I'm just talking about celebrities, think again. The CIA's been running their little ops like Operation Mockingbird for decades, sliding into every possible space where they can mold what you see, what you hear, and even how you pray. Megachurch pastors, they're basically rock stars in the pulpit, and some of them are doing more than just preaching the word. They're in place to keep believers under a certain spell, pushing church-approved narratives that protects the status quo. Oh, what you say? You don't believe me, Muffin? Well, I tell you what, crack open those declassified CIA files like I did. You'll see how they planted operatives in high and low places, PTA meetings, women's book clubs, and yes, churches too. These folks might be pastors and heroes and missionaries to you, but to the big dogs in the agency, they're assets, shaping hearts and minds from the inside out. So whenever you see someone pop up from humble beginnings, blowing up like some feel-good rags to riches story, just know it might be an entire network lifting them up. So let me give you an example, and let's just keep it Bryant while we're doing it. Folks absolutely do talk about Jamal Bryant's father, and they talk about how his meteoric rise to megachurch fame happened in no time flat too. Yeah, he started off with nothing, but apparently that nothing came with a fancy education and a bunch of honorary doctorates. He's hailed as the father of neopentecostalism, but let's keep it a buck. His influence wasn't just some random stroke of luck. We can thank Dr. John Bryant for introducing that wave of tongue speaking and mysticism. You know, all that scamming and weird prophet line going on in African churches now. Turns out, back in the 80s, a bunch of Black American pastors, John Bryant included, were sent overseas to spark new religious movements. When you dig into how the CIA was involved in the Black church scene, those timelines start to line up real quick. Long story short, next time you catch a so-called humble figure blowing up, or you see your new favorite pastor turn rock star overnight, ask yourself who's really behind that rise. Odds are it ain't just divine intervention. It might be a whole system of well-placed assets making sure the narrative goes exactly where they want it to. Listen, baby, these megachurch pastors, they're all in the same club playing a big old game of spiritual pyramid scheme. Cash flows uphill, so when one pastor gets booted or another one steps in, it doesn't matter what the denomination is, there's always a shot caller at the top pulling the strings. Now, let me ask you this. Who is the shot caller in religion? So when we think about, let's say, the music and entertainment industry, music per se, we'll say like a Clive Davis, right, was like a big dog. A lot of people view him as the hidden hand in the music industry. Who do you think the Clive Davis of religion is? Comment down below because I want to know. Anyway, these church leaders are straight up political installs. Their number one agenda, cash. Everything else is secondary. Case in point, Jamal's messy rise to take over after Eddie Long passed away wasn't about divine calling. It was about who can keep them offering plates filled, keep the congregation blind, and keep pushing whatever scheme the big dogs want to see in the Black church. It's the same hustle we see with influencers and podcasters, charisma and clout all day, every day. That's why Jamal has this wide appeal. He's relatable. Think about it. 4 baby mamas, a failed marriage, child support drama, and he's still out here doing things that would make your Sunday school teacher clutch her pearls. From hanging at rap concerts to dropping lines like, "These hoes ain't loyal," right in the middle of church. He's basically the biggest player to ever grace a Baltimore pulpit. Baby, it's wild. But that's exactly how it goes down when you're part of a system that cares more about money and influence than it does actual ministry. So the next time you see a pastor blowing up, maybe ask yourself whose pockets are getting lined. and whether the real divine plan is just hidden behind all that dollar sign hype. So listen, what I'm trying to do is establish a pattern here, and the pattern actually arguably might have started with Jamal's father. But if we dig into it, you will see that this is a pattern of events that happens all the time with these quote unquote celebrity megachurch pastors. This is all about business acquisitions and agendas being flowed. Let's get into this before we dive into Jamal's straight up blasphemous coronation at New Birth. Let's talk about the establishment of Paula White. So y'all remember Zachary Timms, right? He and his then wife co-pastored this massive mega church down in Florida. And let's be real, Zachary shot to fame like nobody's business. Now, there was a little bit of controversy behind his untimely death, and I know what the official story is, so I know what the common understanding is. I'm not disputing that in this video because this is not about him, but if y'all want me to talk about it, just let me know that you want me to get into it because I have covered it before. Now, Zachary died back in 2011, and the street started buzzing about him again when Royce Reed spilled that Dwight Howard was supposedly with Timms the night he passed away. If you want the wine on that, just drop a comment and let me know. I've covered it before, honey. I can tell you. Anyway, when Zachary died, the church folks assumed Reva would naturally step in as senior pastor, right? Well, not so fast. In swoops Jamal calling a meeting with the board and basically telling them, nah, Paula White is going to be your new pastor. Now, you might be asking, what's Jamal doing rolling in there like that, especially when he doesn't even share their denomination? Simple. It's the same celebrity-style hierarchy I've been talking about. Everybody's got a role, and in that role, they handle business. This was a black church, and they needed a black man's face and voice to come in and say, hey, guess what? We're not sticking with the black woman who was already co-pastor. We're handing this pulpit over to Paula. Naturally, the people weren't feeling that move, but Jamal and Paula basically shoved it through anyway. Boom. Paula got her new church, which, let's be honest, is more like a business acquisition if we're calling it what it really is. Years later, when Jamal slid into that New Birth role, it was the same script, different actors. So let's talk about it, shall we? Now, we all remember Eddie Long, right? The man was basically a walking scandal. Multiple young men accused him of exploitation and grooming, and the fallout got nastier by the day. Still, under his reign, New Birth boasted a massive 25,000-member roster. That is until the scandals and Eddie Long's prolonged absences due to his illness caused that number to nosedive to around 10,000. From what I've dug up, Eddie specifically left instructions for his son to take over, and the board was on board with that, pun intended. But clearly, New Birth felt it needed a PR miracle because their reputation was in the gutter. Here's where Jamal enters that group chat again. Now, before you think that they were saving the day with Jamal, check his track record. Multiple out-of-wedlock kids, rumors of impregnating a teenage congregant, sleeping around with church members, and even catching a traffic violation while parked outside one baby mama's house, the same one who reportedly had a protective order out on him. He's been divorced, headlined for all the wrong reasons, just a whole mess. You think the last thing this church needed was another drama magnet in the pulpit? Huh. Oh, but here's the kicker. This move wasn't about saving souls. It was about saving dollars. New Birth had a debt problem, and Jamal was Mr. Money Moves. Young, popular, and skilled at attracting the deepest pockets in the black church, specifically black women. According to New Birth's business manager, that debt reduction plan of his was the golden ticket. So yeah, let's be real. God isn't calling these men. Cash is. Remember how one of the first big events Jamal threw down at New Birth was hosting Kanye's Day service? If that doesn't scream money changers in the temple, I don't know what does. Plenty of folks, and even some celebs, called him out for it. Rumor has it Jamal took up multiple offerings during the service and then held a separate session for celebrities, pressuring them to give even more. Apparently, according to Jamal, donating to New Birth guarantees blessings, but T.I. and Killer Mike, they weren't buying it, and they went public, putting Jamal on blast. Jamal's response? Basically, they're just sinners talking trash. He literally said that. Real typical, right? All right, now speaking of sinners, let's talk about how this so-called man of God explains his questionable love life. Dating and sex outside of a marriage is definitely not biblical. So what up with all these girlfriends, kids out of wedlock, unpaid child support, multiple baby mamas, and even stories of forcing women into abortions to cover up his dirt? One of these women was allegedly only 17. Jamal likes to downplay that bombshell because apparently he paid her off after making sure the pregnancy went away. But y'all remember the baby mama who actually showed up at the church trying to keep it classy while asking them to make him support their son? Turns out Mr. Millionaire Pastor was shelling out a mere $400 a month in child support while claiming an income of only $3,300 a month. This dude living in a mansion and rolling up in a Rolls Royce, mind you. She took him to court for paternity tests, and surprise, surprise, he's the daddy, after he publicly denied it for ages. Then, right after tying the knot with Dr. Carrie Turner, a whole nother can of worms we'll get into later, he got caught behind on child support again just a few months ago, but apparently he was too busy jet-setting in Dubai with the new missus to show up in court. Now, I know this was a lot to take in, but trust me, we're not done. We've got a part 2 on deck where we're going to break down each piece of this hypocrisy point by point to show how he might just be the poster child for leading black folks straight into a ditch, morally, spiritually, financially, and politically. So call me Nyla with the receipts because I'll be coming with the proof, the documents, the logic, and the truth. Catch you in a few days for part 2. And if you like my commentary, please click like, comment, and subscribe. And if you don't like it, you can still comment, you can still subscribe because you're bound to return and find something that will entertain you or be of intellectual benefit.